Updates on TikTok notes, the TikTok ban, Google's interest in HubSpot, and much more on today's Strong Coffee Drip. Hi again, everyone. I'm Brian from Strong Coffee Marketing, joined as always by Project Manager Extraordinaire Iain. Iain, it's good to see you. I've hardly seen you this week.
It has. It's been a busy week. Hey,
it's been a very busy week.
Hardly seen each other.
Yeah, so good to see you. You still look the same?
Yes.
Everything's going well?
Everything's going just fine. Thank you. And
perfect. You? Everything is fantastic. I had a busy week. I did some speaking this week. I'm surprised I still have a voice. So I'll give it a rest over the weekend. So we're going to switch things up a little bit today. Over the past 15 episodes, this is now episode number 16. Over the past 15 episodes, we've covered a lot of ground and we've talked about a lot of different topics. And then as the weeks and months roll on, new information and updates are starting to kind of roll in based on the stuff we already talked about. So I thought today might be a good opportunity for us to do a bit of an update episode. So we're going to do a bit of a rapid fire as opposed to our traditional setup. And we're going to call this our first ever update episode. So does that sound good? Something different?
Yeah.
We're all about change, Iain.
Indeed.
Yeah, staying fresh. But before we get into that, Iain, my plan was to continue the old school video game idea. We tend to talk about an old school video game every week. And I was going to surprise you with my Sega Saturn.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But I can't find it.
Okay.
I went looking in our closet, our storage room. I'm like, oh, I'll find the Sega Saturn. I'll pull it out. Iain will be all happy. I have no idea where it is.
Oh, it's long gone. It was sold at the garage sale years ago, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't even know how much you would get for that on a garage sale. Didn't last for it. Most people would be like, what's a Sega Saturn? But good news, when I was in the storage room, I found something else. Okay. And this actually, oddly enough, it relates to something that you and I chatted about through messages maybe about a week or so ago. So for everybody out there, no one knows what we talk about in our messages, obviously. But when we're not talking about work, Iain and I basically send messages to each other about random retro things, Wendy's, and I don't know, anything else? It's kind of those two things, right?
Yeah, usually.
Like random toys or video games, like retro stuff, and always about Wendy's or maybe Subway would be the other one, I guess.
AI updates is the other thing. A lot of AI
updates. A lot of AI updates, but that's work stuff. That's not as fun. And obviously, we're always on the quest to find the best spicy chicken sandwich. And there might be an episode, maybe when we get into the studio in office, we'll do something like that just for fun.
A&W still top spot.
Wow. That's a hot take.
Hot take, yeah.
Hot take. So this is something we talked about a few weeks ago. And so I brought a prop. And Iain doesn't know when I do these prop things. He's like, I have no idea what this guy's doing. Iain, I brought a little prop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is, I think his name is Airtight, and I think he had to do with like chemical warfare or something like that. I don't remember, but not so much that I have this little figure here. The fact that we in North America call these G.I. Joe figures, and as a kid our age, G.I. Joes were my world for many years. I had so many G.I. Joes and all the different tanks and equipment and all that kind of stuff. But randomly in our not always work chat, you brought up something interesting about G.I. Joes a couple weeks ago. So if you had this figure when you were a kid in Scotland, what would the name of this figure be?
Well, the name of the brand name of all the Ranger figures would be Action Force, not G.I. Joe. Action Force.
Action Force.
Yeah. Same style of branding and everything. It's still the red, white, and blue stripes and the star. But instead of the words G.I. Joe, the words were Action Force.
Action Force. And I went and Googled it, and sure enough, it's all the same colors and everything. I don't know if I like Action Force better, though. Like, it's kind of Action Force. I don't know. I don't know if that's my favorite thing. But yeah, these were a toy that we used to get a lot of play out of, and I'm sure you did as well. The other thing, too, that I don't have any sort of figure of it, I was a big fan, UK-wise, of the Thunderbirds.
Oh, right, yes.
Yes, the marionette puppets.
Yeah.
Big Thunderbirds guy.
There were other ones. There was like Joe 90 and what was the other one? Captain Scarlett. Did you get those over here?
No, I remember Thunderbirds.
Okay. Yeah.
And they had Thunderbird 1 and Thunderbird 2, and those were the different rockets, and Brains with the big glasses. Yeah. That'll be a different episode. We'll talk all about Thunderbirds. Yes, it was top notch. Top notch. The other thing we should probably mention before we get into what we're going to talk about today is hockey. Okay. So we live in Edmonton, and you can't go anywhere in Edmonton right now without hearing or talking about the Edmonton Oilers. They're obviously playing in the Stanley Cup final. They start tomorrow. But a question I have for you, Ian, because we never really talked about this. Have you ever been to a hockey game?
I have, although not an Oilers game. I went with my family to see the Oil Kings.
Oil Kings, yeah.
Which was a really, really good family day. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we go to a number of Oil Kings games too in our family. So Oil Kings, for anybody that don't know, are the junior team here in Edmonton. They play in the same arena as the Oilers. So if you want to get a feel of what the arena is like, you can go and see an Oil Kings game. And there's many Oil Kings players that have gone on to play in the NHL as well. But I was kind of surprised that you hadn't done a lot in terms of hockey, because really depending on who you talk to or what you read, there's a lot of people that say the first ever hockey game was actually in Scotland.
Oh, right.
So
yeah.
you might have brought that game with you when you came over here.
Yeah, I've done photo shoots for hockey teams back in Scotland, but I never actually went to a hockey game, although not far from where I work, there was an ice arena where the local hockey team played. They were called the Fife Flyers.
Oh, Fife Flyers.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, go Fife Flyers.
Yeah.
I hope you have a great year in the probably UK British Hockey League of some sort. I know they have a professional league over there. So there you go. So we didn't talk about old school video games and golf today, but we talked about G.I. Joe / Action Force and hockey. Yeah. So we got those things covered off. But you know what? It's time to talk about what we do at Strong Coffee in the world of digital marketing. And we're going to do a little reverse roles for this. Mm-hmm. So normally I'm the one asking the questions and asking for opinions. We're going to flip this one around a little bit. Ian, you can set them up and I'll knock them down. We're just going to run through some of the things that we have talked about in previous episodes and share a bit of an update from things we've heard, things we've read, things we've actually seen, and hopefully can keep everybody in the loop in some of those things. So let's get going. Ian, what's first on the agenda?
First up, we're jumping back to about a month ago, back to episode 12. We spoke about TikTok Notes, a new feature that TikTok was thinking of implementing, and they were testing in Canada. So we had an opportunity to try that out. Any updates with that one?
So TikTok Notes, like you said, is still testing in Canada. I think it was Canada and Australia, if I'm not mistaken. So I've had a chance to play with it a little bit more. And if you go back and look at some of our other episodes, you'll see better reviews and descriptions of it. I would say my kind of second impressions of TikTok Notes, that now that I've had it for a little bit, is that it's not terribly busy right now because it's just Canadian. So there's a smaller group of people that are actually on it. But the one thing I have really noticed over the past couple of weeks is when you are on TikTok, I'm getting regular notifications saying, hey, so-and-so that you follow on TikTok is also on TikTok Notes. You can click it and you hop over to TikTok Notes. This would be very similar if anybody is using Instagram and Threads, where if you're on Instagram and all of a sudden they're starting to kind of place Threads content inside of the feed, for example. It's basically the same thing with TikTok and TikTok Notes. So there's no word, I haven't seen anywhere about a larger rollout date for TikTok Notes, but it is still testing here in Canada. And I think now just having that tie to TikTok is probably going to drag a few more people over. But overall, it's a pretty smooth app to use. It's pretty easy to use. And I would imagine when it actually rolls out to everyone, there's probably some additional features that'll come with it. Maybe they're slowly rolling those out in test. But yeah, that's all I know about TikTok Notes right now. And I am curious to see when it does kind of make its big appearance to the world. How is that going to disrupt what something like Instagram, for example, does? So sure. We'll keep on top of it. And it is kind of a unique one because, as you mentioned, it's testing here in Canada. Yeah. So we have kind of a front row seat. But that's kind of the full, that's everything I know about TikTok Notes right now.
Okay, good. Right. Great update. Thank you. And yeah, we'll be interested to see how that progresses for the coming weeks and possibly months.
Weeks or months, who knows? Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, sticking with TikTok, but moving away from Canada now to our neighbours to the south. back in episode 13, we talked about the TikTok ban, the fact that the US government was trying to force the sale of TikTok to an American company or an American-owned company. How's that been going? Have we got any updates on that one?
Not so much. The biggest thing that one of the guys at our office sent this article along to me, and it was kind of interesting. It was from Reuters, and it was talking about how there's some talk out there that TikTok is working on a clone that could potentially run independently of the TikTok mothership, if you will. So it would be a US specific clone of TikTok. So that would allow users to continue to use the app, but not have all their data accordingly or allegedly not flow back to the parent company. I think it's a kind of a smart idea if that is the case and if that is something that would come to fruition. But one thing that is a little bit curious to me is, let's say they go and make this clone. Is the fact that they've made this clone and are calling it independent of ByteDance and the larger TikTok, is that still enough to get around this ban? I don't know, right?
Sure.
You know, if they went and cloned it, and even if there's, let's say, a head office for it in the States somewhere, is that enough? And I guess that's the big thing that we would have to kind of wait and see. But it is interesting with the TikTok ban that there was a lot of discussion about it when it was going through the processes in the States. Kind of died off a little bit. So I'm wondering, are we just waiting now until it gets closer to the date and it's going to all ramp up again? But I'll be interesting to see where that ends up. But that's kind of the word on the street from, according to Reuters, is that they're working on this clone.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think what you're saying is right about the fact that as we near the end date, I do think that things will start to ramp up and we'll hear more and more about it, whether that is about whether it is going ahead or isn't going ahead or what's going to happen there. And I think the clone thing is an interesting angle as well, I guess, because while it may make the government happy, is it going to keep the users happy, and will it start to diverge is the other thing. You know, it's kind of like it may start off as an identical clone of TikTok, but as the weeks and months progress, do they start having different features or different restrictions? Or yeah, it would be interesting to see how
or even to that point, like if you're kind of working in two playgrounds where you have the US version and the rest of the world version, I would be really curious to see how content starts to work in one and the other when different trends emerge in somewhere in the world, and those trends really aren't crossing paths, because if you're a US user, you're not seeing some of the trends that are maybe occurring over in other parts of the world and vice versa. So they could actually kind of take on a bit of a personality of their own, each of them. And then for us in Canada, the question would be, well, where do we fall in all of this? Does the US clone end up becoming a US, England, or EU, potentially Canada? What does that look like? So there's still lots to be determined here. I've kind of said, and I said on the episode originally, with no insider information whatsoever, I just don't see this happening. This ban, I just don't. Something's going to happen.
I think you and I both agreed on that at the time, and
yeah.
Until we hear more, I don't think either of our opinions have changed.
Nope, not whatsoever.
Alrighty. Right, well, thanks for that update. Moving on to our next subject. Back in episode 12, I believe it was, we talked about Google, a rumor that Google was potentially looking to purchase or acquire HubSpot, and the impacts that could have and changes that could see to both these platforms. Have we heard any news regarding that?
Yeah. And this one is interesting, I think, and we touched on this in the episode. For us as an agency, this one's actually really, something to watch, because, you have your Google suite of tools and they're already so powerful. Imagine being able to add a CRM system like HubSpot into the mix. All sorts of options available there. But there have been more media reports about it lately, and it's almost kind of like where there's smoke, there's probably fire. And I from everything that you kind of read from people that are very much in the know, it seems like it's moving down that path. I saw a couple of weeks or a week or so ago, HubSpot shares, they jumped up after some news that had come out. So it's kind of, I don't know, if you look down the line, to me anyways, it's probably going to be something that happens. And yeah, I'm really curious to see if this was to occur. How would Google roll it out? Would they kind of bake all these features into their existing business products? Would it be a standalone product? But I could really see it being a way to kind of level the playing field with Microsoft. Because if you think about Microsoft and the products that they have available for businesses, they're a clear step ahead in regards to a CRM and that kind of system. This thing, I think, would really level the playing field.
Absolutely. Yeah. Interesting. So
yeah, and HubSpot's a really powerful tool on its own. Imagine if all of a sudden it connects up with Google.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if these rumors continue and whether they, like you say, whether they do lead to something. Very cool.
We'll put a bet on it. We'll bet a spicy chicken burger on whether or not it comes to fruition.
Fair enough. That sounds good. Going back a bit further now, back to episode 10 and our favorite business-based social media platform, LinkedIn. We were looking at LinkedIn were testing a feature to have some vertical video on their platform. They wanted a bit of that TikTok action. Has anything come of that? They were testing it at the time. Has it been rolled out, or have we seen it?
They want in on the TikTok action. I like how you put that. This one, for me personally, is one that I'm actually really interested in, and I'll constantly make sure my LinkedIn app is updated, and I'm always looking to see if it's there. It isn't there. And it's actually sort of interesting that there was some talk about it early on, and then no one's really mentioned it lately. And then all of a sudden, over the past week, you would see a couple more people starting to talk about it. And now, from what I've read and some of the stuff I've sort of seen now, it looks like they're starting to test it on iOS devices. So I'm not an iOS user, but Yasher on our team is. So I had a call with him the other day and just said, hey, open up LinkedIn, make sure it's updated to the most recent one. What do you see? And he couldn't see the video button at the bottom. When you look at the bottom of LinkedIn on the LinkedIn app, there's these different buttons across the bottom. And some people are reporting that they're seeing a video button. And when you click that, it takes you into this TikTok-like or Instagram Reels-like feature with vertical videos, and you can scroll through them. He didn't see that. But he did say when he went and found a vertical video on the standard LinkedIn feed and he clicked it, he then had the ability to scroll through and look at other vertical videos. So it was kind of like he was missing one part of it, but had the other part. And we couldn't remember, either of us, if the scrolling feature is something that's already always been there. We can't really remember. But he was able to do that, and the interface looked very similar to TikTok with the ability to comment and like on the actual video itself, full screen vertical. So I would anticipate this is something that is going to happen. And truthfully, the reason that I'm so interested in it at our agency is because we're doing this podcast now. Every time we create a podcast, we have maybe 10 to 14 vertical videos that we create, and we put them out on TikTok and YouTube especially. Well, now we've kind of developed this repository of vertical videos, and LinkedIn is somewhere that we really like to participate in. If this feed does come around and become reality, we've got lots of content that I'm really interested to start trying and saying, what if we put this up? What can we do with it? How does it look, etc.? So that's kind of personally why I'm really interested in it. So, they are testing it apparently with iOS devices. And to me, it's probably just a matter of time before it shows up. And I'm really curious to see. I've seen a few people say, this isn't LinkedIn. That's not what LinkedIn is all about. Well, things change, right?
Absolutely. And sticking with LinkedIn and things changing, another subject that we spoke about a few weeks ago, I think it was the same episode, was LinkedIn trying some gamification, trying to have the some playable games right there just in LinkedIn, so that when you're
in feed,
giving you that, hopefully that reason to log in every day if you haven't had it already or whatever. But yes, any gamification use? Has there been any further rollout of that feature?
Luckily, no, from what I've seen. Because who doesn't want to update your resume and play a quick game of something on LinkedIn?
Go to tend to my digital farm.
Yeah. Make sure the corn is growing in your digital farm, and add something that you want. Your company won an award, or I'm not sure. So, no, there hasn't been any more info about this. And for me personally, I'm kind of glad, because that's a weird one. Vertical video on LinkedIn, I get. Gamification on LinkedIn feed, I'm a little bit so on that. But in the same kind of idea, YouTube just rolled out games on their platform, and they're called YouTube Playables. They're available on both the desktop version and the app version of YouTube. They're fairly basic and simple games that you can play directly on YouTube. It doesn't take you to any sort of third-party app. So yeah, the easiest way is if you go to the YouTube homepage and scroll down just a little bit, you'll see them right there called YouTube Playables. There's more than 75 games to try, including Angry Birds, Cut the Rope. There's one called Farmland, which Ian, you might be really into. I think the goal here obviously is to keep people on the platform longer. And I know, if you go on YouTube any amount, one of the big kind of verticals in terms of content is gaming content. Now, obviously, it's not necessarily gaming content that aligns with these games that are coming out. You're not playing Call of Duty on YouTube, but those are there now. They were tested for a while. Again, talking to Yasher on our team, he's in on the premium side of things, so he has the ability to test these things. And he says he's actually been tested. He was available for testing for a while, so he actually had a favorite game, and he's like, "Oh, I play this game all the time." So they are there. We shall see what happens, but YouTube Playables are a thing. What are the implications of it when it comes to marketing? Probably absolutely nothing outside of you might play a game when you go to YouTube. But hey, you know what? In YouTube's world, if you stay on the platform for just a couple more minutes, they won.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's very interesting, because I think, was Netflix the first one to sort of try and bridge that gap between your streaming service? Everyone thinks of you as a streaming service. It's where you go to get to stream entertainment in video format. But then a while ago, they did try to add some games as well, I think. And it's interesting that now YouTube is trying something similar, because, like you say, it is all about the more time the user spends on that platform or that channel, the more dollars that the company gets. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
Might be inclined to then watch a video, something else. Who knows? But I know, Ian, on our team, you're the big YouTube guy on our team, and you've mentioned in some of the other episodes. As a regular YouTube user, are you going to be, as soon as this podcast is over, are you going to be getting on YouTube to play Angry Birds?
I don't know. The thing is, I haven't actually noticed the games. Although I'm in YouTube a lot, it's something I do on the computer and sometimes on the TV, more so than on my phone. So it hasn't been jumping out to me that the games have been available. But I certainly, after this episode, I'm going to take a look and see if I can see those games and see what's available, and just for interest, because I do find it interesting what we're talking about here.
Yeah, go on the homepage and scroll down a little bit. Okay. I haven't really looked for them on my phone as much, but definitely on the desktop version, you just scroll down below a couple of videos and they appear right there. So there you go. You can play some games. Ian, you can just game all weekend. You can watch hockey, big hockey guy. Yeah. You can play some games. And I would imagine the other thing you'll probably be doing a lot of this weekend is you're going to be hopping on Threads.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Last week we had an interesting discussion about Threads and their new pinned columns.
Don't call it TweetDeck.
Don't call it
pinned columns.
It's pinned columns, not TweetDeck. So the new feature, which I think, Brian, you had asked me whether I was interested in it. I said not really, and you also had said you weren't really interested at the time. But big news since then.
Big news. And you know what? Yeah. It wasn't even big. It was big news as the videos of us talking about pinned columns were coming out. They went and released it. So I think they knew this guy on this podcast, Iain, doesn't really care. So we're going to drop this. We're going to get in front of his video of not caring, and we're going to put out pinned columns. So yes, if you go on the desktop version of Threads now, pinned columns are a thing. There's a little button down at the bottom, and you click it and you can pin. It's just like TweetDeck. You can pin different columns depending on what you want to see, accounts, etc. And if you're a TweetDeck user, you're going to totally get it in about 30 seconds of looking at it. I will say, Ian, and I know I said I didn't care before because I'm not a big Threads user. We don't really use it at our agency, and when I do, I just use my phone. It's actually pretty good.
Okay, great.
So, you know what? You still won't care about it, and I'll care about it. I went from 0% to maybe caring 10%, but it actually is really good. It's really useful, really easy to use. And ultimately, I think if a few more people start using Threads because this is now available, that's great for the platform.
Absolutely.
So, so much to the dismay of Iain, it's good. And I care about it a little bit more than I did just 1 week ago.
Yeah.
So, and next step, Iain, we'll want to get you on it.
I don't want it to be mad. I just was indifferent. Not the same thing.
You still don't care. You still don't care. So yeah, I think that's a bit of a wrap. Iain, the one other thing, and this isn't on your notes because I like going off script. The one other thing that was getting quite a bit of play for us this past week when we were talking about OpenAI and had a conversation with somebody in one of the comment sections, and they were talking about the whole Sky voice and Scarlett Johansson, etc. From what I've read, and I don't know if you have an update on this, they pulled that voice a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
It's not there right now.
Pretty much immediately they pulled it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did say at the time that obviously, I think OpenAI made an announcement right away explaining that it was a different voice actor completely. They haven't tried to recreate her voice or anything. And since then, while the voice actor has decided or chosen to stay anonymous, they did put out a statement through, I think it was through their lawyer or something like that, or perhaps through their agent, just saying, look, this is a different person. It's not a recreation of anyone's voice without their consent. It's just a voice actor. And I suppose the conversation then turned to, did they try and search out someone who sounded as like Scarlett Johansson as they could find, or is this just a coincidence?
A weird coincidence.
Yeah. So yes. That's the update with that voice. But yeah.
So one more, if you're looking for Sky, sorry.
Gone. For now.
Look up. It's the only place you're going to see Sky right now. So there's a bit of an update on where things stand. There are some interesting things on the horizon that we're going to talk about for future episodes. On my radar, things that I'm going to start investigating for potentially next week or the week after. I did see a post just today that Instagram is testing unskippable ads. I'm sure Duncan will have an opinion on this, and I'm really curious to see what Duncan will say about unskippable ads on Instagram. And another one that was kind of interesting for me was when I go and speak places, people always kind of, when we're talking about the lay of the land on social, people automatically say, well, Facebook is just for old people. That's where old people hang out. Well, Facebook now is actually trying to figure out a way to get young people excited about jumping back onto the platform. So they're releasing some new things. We'll talk more about that in a few weeks. And another one that came across my radar this past week is Mr. Beast has announced a really cool YouTube tool. There's a free version and a paid version. And I've got the free version, the plugin up on my Chrome browser, and I use it. It is really, really cool. And we'll talk more about that coming up probably next week. So, and Iain, you mentioned something that's happening on Monday, correct?
Right. Yeah. There's going to be the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference. They do this event every year where they announce updates to things like the operating system for Macs and the upcoming changes to the operating system for iPhones and iPads. And I think with all the announcements that we've seen recently from Google and OpenAI, the big rumors are that Apple are going to be jumping into the same AI world as with a big splash. So there's rumors about what's coming and changes to their digital assistant Siri, things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what they come out with at that event.
Yeah. So you know what? Anything interesting there we can chat about next week. You know what would be a real power move if at the Apple event they brought out Scarlett Johansson as the new voice of Siri.
Well, I believe they are working with OpenAI, so they might be in the bad books as well.
That would be something. Social media would be ablaze if that happened. So we shall wait and see there. So yeah, lots of cool things on the horizon, but I'm glad we did a kind of a bit of an update episode, because as we talk about things and then there's new updates, we're like, we might as well get those updates out to those that come across our content. We'll do one of these every once in a while as time allows and as content comes across our feed as well. So That's it. Friday afternoon, Ian. Let's wrap up for the week. On behalf of myself and Ian and this little Action Force character, we believe his name is Airtight. I'll have to confirm that, but I think that's his name. G.I. Joe in our country, not in Ian's country. Action Force, the generic Action Force. So on behalf of the three of us, have a fantastic week, a fantastic weekend. Go Oilers. I'm not an Oilers fan, but I live in Edmonton. Go Oilers. Ian, I'm sure you're cheering for them as well, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got to cheer for the whole team.
Okay, perfect. So we'll see where everything stands when we record next. There'll be a few games in. So have a wonderful week. Ian, thanks for jumping on. Let's get back to work and have a great weekend. Goodbye, everybody.